The Morris Marina. The humble car that to some signifies everything wrong with British Leyland. The Marina to most of the car-conscious public appears to have been a punchline to the joke that was British Leyland. But what if the Marina was a victim of clear bias? What if the Marina was actually the unsung hero of the British car industry? A car that despite the odds still sold 1.2 million units, even beating the Ford Escort in sales in some years. This is the Morris Marina, and how it came to be known as the worst car in the world, and why I think that is simply untrue. Hello everybody and welcome to this video. If you're not subscribed already, please make sure to do so. It really does help me out and you get to see more of this. More history videos, more cars and conversions uncovered, and more projects like my Rover SD1. This video is on what some have called one of the biggest catastrophes of British Leyland, the Morris Marina, and how it ended up in the position it was in by 1984. Make sure to comment below your Morris Marina or BL memories. Make sure to like the video if you liked it and share if you want other people to see it. But without further delay, let's get into this video on the Morris Marina. To understand the Marina, we need to go back to where it all began. 1967 was an interesting year for the British car industry. BMC were in a bit of a state, losing £3.2 million that year. Production had ground to a halt several times, resulting in a loss of 20.86% in car production output. The problems for BMC weren't just internal, there was something external, the revelation known as the Mark II Ford Cortina. BMC's ADO16 cars, the 1100 and 1300, were for the first time knocked from their prestigious perch as the UK's best-selling car. The Cortina Mark II had outsold them by 34,000 units in 1967. Ford, as stated in its brochure, was leading the way. The reasoning behind Ford's sales boom was simple. The cars were conventional, and that was exactly what everyone wanted. ADO16 and its hydroelastic suspension, although clever, would to fleet buyers and private customers be off-putting. The Fords were simply easier to maintain. BMC would poach Roy Haynes, the designer of the Mark II Cortina, from Ford in October of 1967 to give them the magic touch they were lacking. Meanwhile, BMC and Leyland were merging to become British Leyland. The problem for BMC, now Austin Morris, was there wasn't anything conventional in development. Largely Isagonis-led cars like the 9X weren't the conventional Cortina killers that BLMC desperately needed. The fleet market was expanding, and with that expansion, Ford's sales were increasing, whereas BLMC was in decline. It needed its own Escort or Cortina. Even the execs were sounding the alarm. One anonymous British Leyland executive told The Times, "If only BMC had had a straight motor car coming along, it would have given us entry to fleet sales on the one hand, and the ability to make a decent profit margin per unit on the other. We could have given the American-owned firms a real run for their money." The newly formed Austin Morris division was the company's volume arm. Harry Webster would be appointed to rejuvenate the range. The Maxi was coming, but could not compete with the Fords. It was positively hamstrung by BLMC. A car designed in the old ways of BMC entered the trial by fire when BL was created. The Austin was meant to be anything but conventional. With its transverse front-wheel drive engine layout, it was not what the fleet buyer was after. ADO16 cars were still selling well privately. Their replacement, the Allegro, would be parked. There was nothing else that British Leyland had in the Austin Morris arsenal to compete with Ford. Therefore, they needed a completely new car, fast. The issue was time was not on BL's side. They had identified a significant gap in their range. Based on several factors and Ford's new Mark III Cortina on the horizon, they gave themselves 2.5 years to design an all-new car. Enter ADO28, the Morris Marina. The car would begin development in early 1967, but would already have its work cut out for it. British Leyland's financial position post-merger didn't lend itself well to so many projects, and this was quickly becoming unmanageable. Therefore, it was decided the Marina would be a pure parts bin special. This wasn't just a cost-cutting measure. The Morris Marina was in a race against time. Morris's new conventional car would raid the parts bin of Triumph and MG as well, using the Triumph 1300 gearbox. The Marina didn't lack glamour early on. It was decided it would have a more luxurious version in its two-door coupe model, a jewel in the crown to tempt buyers in and appeal to the younger crowd. The Morris Marina was chosen as a base. A car originally launched in 1948, a relatively good idea, a conventional car. Stretch the wheelbase, new engines, stiffer body, and you have the Marina. But there was a massive problem. The Marina in a race against time was in a race against the Morris Marina. It needed to be launched fast, not just because of the pressures from the executives, but the state of the production line. The rationale behind the Marina being based on minor components was simple. They had the production line and the tooling more or less ready to go. The issues came when minor production slowed down due to the lack of demand. Parts of the production line that were not used fell into disrepair or were modified to be used for other purposes. By the time development had gotten to its most crucial stages, it was found that the majority of the Morris Marina's tooling was so obsolete and worn out it couldn't be used, ruining any savings BL could have had by using their existing equipment. This meant savings needed to be made in other areas. The coupe, originally proposed to be a styling icon to attract buyers under 35, would ditch its high-end image, and worst of all, be given the saloon doors, making the rear end look awkward. It wasn't all bad news though. The car was coming together, and with the planned production volumes, Cowley would be expanded. But then the Marina's race against time would become a race to the bottom line. September 1968 would come and go, but it came with a profit warning. The price of the Marina would need to be raised to accommodate and mitigate the issues. By the end of that year, Longbridge's finance team were in disarray. Thanks to the cost overruns in development caused by the issues of reusing the Mariner's platform, this would result in the car taking even more time to develop. A few months later, in February 1969, the alarm bells would ring again. Longbridge's finance team forecast the Marina would return a negligible profit. So instead of raising the price again, George Turnbull, managing director of Austin Morris, embarked on a cost-cutting exercise. The finance team at the time was under the impression that Austin Morris would now lose money on each Marina sold, but the team were confident that the up-and-coming Mark III Cortina would come in at the same price point and offer similar value. Around this time, it seemed the goal of development had shifted from one of making a good conventional car to making one as cheaply as possible. So much so that when George Turnbull met with production engineers in 1969, their number one priority was making the car as cheaply as possible. The issue with compounding cost-cutting measures is it begins to compromise quality. The two-piece prop shaft was removed from the production model, resulting in the car needing modifications to accommodate a new single-piece prop. Harmonic and handling characteristics were compromised as a result. It seemed the Marina could not catch a break. It was now being run by the bean counters, but the Marina was ready to enter the ring for its head-to-head with the best of Ford. The Marina would be treated to a glamorous launch, one befitting of what was supposed to be BLMC's big seller. The issue came when production was supposed to start. In May 1971, maintenance workers would strike for 5 days, and then 2 hours after those strikes ended, strike again. The stoppage would come just after launch, the most crucial time for any new car. The plant would lay off 1,700 workers and then call them back in, only to send them home again, resulting in even more unrest. At the same time, the Ford Cortina Mark III, with its more advanced suspension, larger size and more advanced engines, was making waves at the same price point. Orders for the new Cortina were being fulfilled for the most part. After a 10-week strike ended, the new Ford catapulted itself into the sales charts. In 1971, it would manage 102,000 UK sales. The Marina would only manage 41,000. The Marina couldn't even be judged equally in its first year. Orders of the new cars were experiencing 4-month delays due to the industrial action, and as usual, when they got the cars, they were riddled with problems, not just from general build quality issues, but because of the cost-cutting exercises during its development, which compounded these issues even further. Morris's new champion looked like a dud, but suddenly, once production had gotten underway, it began to catch up. In 1973, it would achieve 6.9% UK market share. The Cortina was only 4 percentage points above. A large amount, but it was getting there. Around the same time, a new model would be proposed to facelift and replace the existing Marina with a new model to beat the Cortina. Powered by the O Series engine in its 2-litre and 1.7-litre form, it would be attached to the LT77 5-speed gearbox. A winning combination, replacing the old A and B series engines going forward, comfortably competing against Ford's Pinto. The Marina was finally underway, multiplying more and more. The gap would continue to close even during the energy crisis. The new car was coming together, growing up into a new, more dynamic package to beat the Cortina at its own game. The original Marina was a competitor for the Mark II Cortina, but sadly it missed the mark by being launched too late. The Marina II was refocused. It had the Mark III Cortina firmly in its sights. But then something catastrophic would occur. The giant British Leyland Corporation was beginning to collapse. Strikes, intense competition and missteps had killed British Leyland. Just as the Marina was finally catching up, British Leyland, even in crisis, still managed to get even closer. But with consumer confidence fading, the Marina's race against time was up. In 1975, the year of BL's collapse, the Marina 2 would be cancelled. BLMC's models needed to be rationalised, which somehow equated to killing off the one car that could have led one of the most successful segments of the car market at the time. The Marina's race against time didn't end, it just continued. The car that some had suggested internally only had a shelf life that would last until 1974 would keep going with little changes, lending itself to become the BL bashing justification. If production had ended in 1975, the way we view the Marina would be a lot different. In 1980, it would be replaced by the Morris Ital. It would continue being produced until 1984. The Marina by this point had been in production for 13 years. In the ever-advancing world of the passenger car in the late half of the 20th century, it had stood still. Its main rival, the Ford Cortina, would become a household name. The Marina would too, but for all the wrong reasons. Popular car culture would brand it as one of the worst cars ever made, citing the car using the miner's platform from 1948 in 84 as one of the main reasons why, but this wasn't the original plan. The Marina was a victim of circumstance, much like the Triumph TR7. Misdirection, short-sightedness and catastrophe had killed the Marina's dreams of being the Cortina beater it deserved to be. Morris's Everyman Saloon can be seen as a winner in hindsight, despite the criticism and the terrible backdrop of its development and production. In the end, it sold 1.2 million cars. Not bad for a stopgap. And that is the end of the video. What is your opinion on the Morris Marina and its legacy? Let me know in the comments below. But as always, thank you for watching, keep watching and remember to subscribe for more of this, and I'll see you in the next one.